Hello, welcome to my drive home from work. We're going to talk about dealing with critical people today. And this is something that I've dealt with quite a bit, but it's also something that I've been on the other end of. I've been a critical person. And I'm not saying I'm completely not critical anymore. There's definitely those moments where I am critical. And so not 100% cured, but definitely a big improvement from, I think, where I used to be, where I would be constantly critical, constantly complaining. So I think that before we jump into the main topic, how to deal with critical people, I think that we need to do some paperwork. Let's make a distinction between critical people and people who criticize you. Okay, there's a big difference, because I think a critical person is somebody who's constantly criticizing you, or somebody who has nothing but critical things to say. And I would frame that as a critical person. Now, somebody who brings you criticism, don't worry, I'm at a stoplight, so we're not going to get an accident or anything. Somebody who brings you criticism, that could be good. Nobody is 100% on all the time. Nobody is 100% right. Okay, so there's going to be times where you are making a mistake, or you're doing something that's not good for you, or not healthy, or not right. And so there should be people in your life who are able to point that out. And I think when you receive criticism, you shouldn't be mad about it. Now, sometimes you can't control how you feel. And there's a lot of feelings that happen when you get criticized. Some of the first feelings are, I need to protect myself. I need to disprove it. I need to run from it. I need to do something. I need to blame shift. I need to blame it on someone. And so that feeling of protection is normal. There's a normal feeling of, that doesn't feel good at all. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't want to hear it. So all that's normal. So I'm saying, when you feel that, you have to rise above that, and you have to listen to the criticism. And I think I think we all should take that criticism in, evaluate it for truth, and try to make the changes that are necessary. So when someone brings you criticism, you should always try to hear it. Now, constructive criticism is the best criticism. If you have someone who's going to say, hey, I think you're doing this wrong, and it might lead to X, Y, and Z, the better way to do it might be to do this or that. Now, that's super constructive, super awesome criticism. Most of the criticism you get in your life is not going to look like that. It's going to more look like an offhand comment, some kind of side talk, some kind of thing you have to decipher, unfortunately. So whenever someone's giving you a negative feedback, you can usually tell that there's something happening. There's some kind of criticism underneath, and sometimes you need to deconstruct this comment. It might just be like, oh yeah, whatever. When you're trying to say something about what you're going to do, or what you're planning, or what you want, and yeah, whatever, or I don't like that, and those quick comments, you might have to deconstruct those to find that constructive criticism. You might have to talk a little more. You might have to communicate with people. That's a possibility. So that's tangential. Okay, we're talking about making a distinction between people who bring criticism, which are good sometimes, and then the critical people, the people who are constantly criticizing you and constantly have nothing but critical things to say. Now, for those people, how do we deal with them? I think the first thing is that we love them. We should just love those people. And part of this comes into my reasoning for why do I think people are critical like that. Okay, so there's some people who are just constantly critical. Why do I think that's so? Well, if I draw from my own personal experience, I would say that I was mainly critical of a lot of people and critical of a lot of things because I was unhappy with myself. So I'm unhappy. I want to make other people unhappy. I want to take the spotlight or the camera off of what's going on in here, and I want to shift it over to somebody else, and I want to draw out their negative qualities or negative traits so that I can feel better, okay? And maybe my view is projection. Maybe when I see someone being constantly critical, I remember myself being unhappy and being constantly critical, and I just project that on them and say, well, they're probably unhappy. So I don't have much else to work with than my personal experience. So I'm going to no doubt project that. And I think that in that case, if the person is unhappy, then why am I going to do something to make them more unhappy? If they're critical of me, that means something is probably unwell inside of themselves. And I'm talking about someone who's constantly critical. Remember the distinction. Okay, I'm not talking about someone who just brought up something to me that's important for me to hear. And so maybe there's something unwell here. That's why they're constantly criticizing. That's why they don't ever have encouraging things to say, or constructive criticism. And so I think that before I get defensive, before you get defensive, before we go down that road, we need to say, okay, I'm going to love this person. This is a person, and they deserve my love, and I am going to, with the best of my ability, I'm going to wish for their well-being and wish for good things for them, and that they would be whole, that they would be made whole again somehow. So I think we need to start there. We always should start with love. We should start by humanizing the person, making sure they're humanized. They're not just, sometimes this criticism comes through the internet. It's just text on a page, and you can't see a human there. You just see type, and it's type that you don't like, and so you want to scrape it off. But it's a human, it's a person, and so we need to humanize that person, and then we need to love them, okay? And that's the first thing I say. First, step number one, that, okay? And once you've done that, okay, then I feel like you're in a healthy place to go forward. And the second thing I think you should do is you should evaluate what they're saying for truth, okay? Because even though they're criticizing you, and even though there's probably something going on, there's some unhappiness, some lack of wholeness, something going on inside, they could still be right, okay? They could still be right. So if we want to improve, if we want to grow as people, we need to know where our blind spots are. We need to know when we're lacking, and in order to do that, people are great exposers of that. I think in the end, God is the ultimate exposer of that. I think God can show you where you're lacking ultimately, because He's not lacking at all. So when you see yourself in light of Him, you see every flaw. Okay, so the point being is that sometimes people can do that. People can show you that flaw about yourself. So I think we should evaluate their criticism for truth, and then we should acknowledge it to them. That's mind-blowing, right? They're always criticizing you, and then you just say, like, let's for instance just use myself as an example. Let's say that I have someone who's always criticizing me, and let's say they say something about my weight. I put on some weight, and it's not a good thing, because it's a health thing, right? It's not healthy to gain as much weight as I have. It's been about 10 pounds in the last I don't know, 3 months maybe, something like that. But it's a health thing, and so let's say they said, oh, Jonathan, you're getting fat, or man, put on some weight, dude, or I don't know how they would say it. This isn't a real situation, by the way. I mean, it's a real situation. I put on weight, but I'm making up the criticism part. So let's say that. Now, my inclination will probably first be to defend again, to say, oh, no, well, I don't know, I'm not putting on that much weight, or, it's been real stressful, so of course I've had a little bit of extra, cookies, or wafers, biscottis. I like those biscottis with a little spread, biscotti spread. Oh man, that stuff is killer. So, okay, anyways, that's beside the point. So let's say they say that, instead of getting defensive, instead of trying to prove them wrong, or trying to shift blame, or trying to deny it, just be in denial. No, I'm not. What are you talking about, man? I'm thinner than I've ever been, you know? Instead of any of that, it's just an acknowledgement. Hey, that's true. I am. But I'm making these steps to make it better, you know? I'm trying to improve. You know, there's nothing wrong with being wrong. There's nothing wrong with being, you know, having an issue. There's nothing wrong with that. So, step number 1, love them. Step number 2, try to find truth in what they're saying and acknowledge it to them. Okay. When you do that, by the way, to someone who's constantly critical, they're disarmed. They can't. What do they come back with? They're like, yeah, that's right. Okay, you're right. What? I'm trying to work on it. Next question. You know, there's nothing they could come back with. Maybe another flaw. That's a lot of work you gotta work through. So, all right, one more, and then we'll get out of here. I'm just parking at the store, so just do one more. So step number 3, communicate clearly, kindly, and short. You know, when you communicate, when you actually, so you love them, you find truth in what they're saying, you try to acknowledge it. Sometimes you won't always be able to, because sometimes what they're saying is just not true. I don't know what to do in that point. I think you just employ number 3, you know, and you just communicate with them clearly and kindly and shortly. Man, communicating shortly is such a good thing, because you don't leave a lot of room for arguments, you know? You don't want to give a bunch of rope to hang yourself with. It's easy. You just say, appreciate your concern. You know, this is something I'll think about, you know? Appreciate your concern. I see the truth in this, working on it. Appreciate your concern, you know? Thank you. Stuff like that, it won't give more fuel, you know, to go after. And so, anyways, this video has been 12 minutes long, a little bit longer because I'm going to keep talking until the end here. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have tips for dealing with critical people, leave them down in the comments down there. And if you have any other tips of what to put on those biscotti crackers besides that biscotti spread, you let me know in the comments too. All right, thanks for listening. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.